Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Idealist Conspiracy. It's your girl, Shani B. Shani.
Hey, and it's your boy, Babalao Ofumbile Amal Hassan Allen.
Amazing, the credentialed man. So today's video is about mountains and molehills and how to put your problems into perspective. This is something that Amal has helped me with quite a bit. As you all know, he is a mentor / best friend, and so on and so forth. So, Amal, what is a way that someone can kind of get out of that mentality when they're chronically making mountains out of molehills?
Well, first and foremost, keep a calm tone, keep a cool head, because it's the infusion of all that emotion and overthinking that's basically turning that molehill into a mountain. So first and foremost, you need to calm down. Everything that happens isn't going to be life-changing and cataclysmic. So you have to treat things as they are. So first and foremost, before you identify something as being huge, identify it as being small first. And if it is bigger than it really is, you'll give yourself an opportunity to see it as that. But if you automatically assume that it's huge, you will create a burden in your mind that isn't living in your reality. So keep a cool head first and foremost, and that will help you to acknowledge something as it is. Because it's the emotional intensity and the overthinking that makes a thought way bigger than it really is.
Gotcha. And I know some people, like myself, when you've been helping me, will hear that and say, okay, well, how do I just calm down? It seems so much bigger than that when you're dealing with it. Is there some tips or tools that you can give that kind of allow people in the moment to calm down?
Yeah, first and foremost, take a deep breath. Like, really breathe. One thing that we don't notice as human beings is that we're not constantly breathing in as deep as we possibly can on a daily basis from moment to moment. So most people do a lot of shallow breathing and they breathe through their nose. It's important that you do some deep breathing. That deep breathing engages you more into life and gives you the opportunity to come to a more centered awareness in the situation that you find yourself. So first and foremost, deep breathing, right? And then allow the thought to just kind of settle for a second. Because if something can't be handled in the moment, you do need to have the ability to put it under a rock and let it sit. Sometimes you can't do nothing about the circumstances in which you have in front of you. And the worst thing you can do is to just keep intensely thinking about that, which is going to create negative feelings around that same subject, which is going to blow it up either mentally or emotionally. Each one of them has their own way of harming you internally.
Right. Okay, so what do you think the cause of people making mountains into molehills is? Is that like a trauma response, or why does that happen?
It can be connected to a trauma response, but it can also be based off of just the natural fear that people have of incoming change in their life. We don't realize that we fear change so much that we are literally trying to pause certain aspects of our lives in order to not have to deal with the oncoming change. Nature tells us everything in life changes, everything in life must change, things will be altered from period to period. So you have to be able to change along with the seasons, which we do without really noticing that we're doing it. You don't wear bathing suits in the winter, and you don't wear jackets in the summer. So you do understand that there is a change that occurs and that you have to roll with that change. It's just that it's easier to do that physically than it is to do that mentally, emotionally. But you have to alter that change. It's like for the person who is a parent who cannot allow themselves to transition into what it means to be a parent is basically someone who is a child who has children. You have to allow yourself to sink into the position that you are in, that you chose, by the way, because you chose it. So when you are a parent, you have to, for real, when you are a parent, you have to be a parent. It's not about you no more. And no matter what you say or do, it will never be about you again.
Right.
And with that being said, if you choose to try to maintain yourself as that single person while trying to be a family person, you're going to destroy the family trying to be selfish and keep yourself where you believe you should be in your timeline. Right? It's the same thing that goes with That goes when you're in a relationship. You can't act like a single person when you're in a relationship.
Although many people do.
Although many people do. But single people behavior and relationship people behavior is different. That's the reason why when you are in a relationship, you're not going to feel as grounded in those friendships with people who don't have a relationship. Because they're going to want to be in one space in reality and you're going to be in the other. And unless they can acknowledge and respect your boundaries where you are in life, you won't be able to deal with them because they'll keep trying to pull you back into this idea of the lifestyle that they're in.
All right. So I just have one. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I just have one question about molehills and mountains. So some people you see, I won't make it about race by any means, but some people you see tend to over-exaggerate on their emotions, kind of making it a scene. Those people, I wonder, what is lacking mentally as far as self-awareness that makes them have these like big, dramatic, grandiose reactions in public specifically?
When you lack awareness of yourself, you can become easily a menace to the reality that you exist in. And it's true. Like, the people who are the least self-aware are the most harmful to us all. And even more so, they're harmful to themselves. They don't realize what's actually happening. But a lot of those people who you see act up in those types of circumstances, those are a lot of times a trauma response. Right. It's like if you're in a store, right, and you get caught stealing, you have one or two options in terms of go ahead and go forward or go backwards. Now, there's other options, but this is usually between the two that people usually choose. You can either be like, oh man, I apologize, you got caught, you let it go, you give it back to him, I apologize. Or you double down and act like you're not wrong. And the thing about it is that the feelings from the shame and the guilt in that moment can be so overwhelming in that moment that you can end up resulting to double down on it because you're scared. You know? Because you don't want to feel bad. So that's a huge part.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. So what are some tips on putting problems into perspective? But specifically, how do you put your problems into perspective that you have?
Honestly, I do a lot of self-reflection, and that honestly helps me to sit down with myself and really look at what I'm doing. But I also acknowledge best possible.
It's 222. I was just saying. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh. To acknowledge best possible outcomes, right? So I want to make something happen, but I'm not so attached to the outcome that if it doesn't happen, I feel like I need to spoil everything that I could accomplish just because of what I want to accomplish in that moment is not being accomplished. So I try to give myself peace, right? We don't really understand relationally what peace looks like is because most of us were not raised in peaceful households. So we are attached to both drama and trauma. Because first, before trauma gets to trauma, it was first drama. Right? And then it becomes trauma. Right? Because first we don't know how to relate to each other. We don't know how to understand each other. We don't know how to communicate. Which usually leads to one of us feeling like we're not being respected. And then the lack of respect turns into something else deeper. Right? It could turn into a physical altercation. Or it could turn into us being emotionally violent towards each other. But that comes from lacking that self-awareness. So a lot of self-reflection and meditative thought processes help to support. And so I like to sit back and really think about what are the ideal outcomes that I want to accomplish and how can I build better relationships and better situations for myself that make things easier for me. But you don't realize that if you make things easier for other people, you'll make things easier for you. And if you try to attempt that and you're not getting that back, then that just means you're doing it for the wrong person in the wrong place. Which means move away from that place, move away from that person.
Right. But do you think that most people believe or have this idea that finding peace is something that they can only get externally? They don't know how to, especially within the thick of the storm, believe that they could kind of find it within themselves. It's always something that comes from externally.
Yeah, I do think that there's an intense belief amongst people that their true gratification is going to come externally.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to know that that's wrong, it's easy. Look at all the people who have what you have and see if they represent the joy and the happiness that you would want to see for yourself. And you'll understand that wealthy people commit suicide just like poor people do.
Right.
People with a lot of people around them commit suicide like people who have no one around them. Mm-hmm. So all the places in which you think getting what you want is going to create the peace that you desire, you realize that if you look at those places, look at those things, those situations, you'll see it's not about those things. It's about the mentality. The mentality that you have can make you successful beyond the success that comes to your life through what you do in terms of your business. That's the reason why when you look at IQ and EQ, they'll tell you EQ people are more successful in the business world because their ability to relate to people and to talk to people and to communicate. The way they communicate creates community. Creating community builds civilization, which makes everybody more successful, which makes the system feed itself. It's like a terrarium, right? A self-contained ecosystem where it gives to itself and it receives from itself. But in the other one, you don't get none of that. Right? It only feeds the individual ego, so it doesn't serve any grander purposes.
So it's basically making molehills into mountains, a type of temper tantrum that adults have internally.
Hallelujah! Yes. Yes.
But I feel like a lot of people will get upset about hearing that and be like, well, this was supposed to happen for me, but it is a way of a temper tantrum.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't supposed to rain today, but you got to go to work.
Right.
Like, I don't know about anybody else, but traffic gets terrible where I live at just because of the rain.
Right.
I believe you me, if I didn't want to go to work that morning when it started raining, I damn sure didn't want to go to work. I was like, ooh, I do not want to get up and leave today. But at the same time, it doesn't change what has to be done. And so in that place, I could sit there and turn a molehill into a mountain and frustrate myself, overheat myself, get upset, and still have to do it.
Right.
Or I can say, acceptance. This is what it is today. You never know. It's raining today. I might meet a beautiful woman who needs an umbrella, and I got one.
Right.
Right? I might have needed to clean my car, but now it rained, and then, it might not be all the way clean, but it looked better than it looked when I was there before. Right. There are silver linings in everything. When someone tells you to be positive, it's a lot of people take that like disrespectfully, like it's something stupid. But the truth of the matter is like being positive means that when you look at reality, you're starting to inform reality in a more positive way, relating back to reality more positively, which is something that we should try to do. Right.
And I remember when we would have conversations like this, and you would try to get me to see a different perspective. It felt like a bit of a dismissal and like the invalidation of my own feelings. But what are some tips to reframe that mindset?
I'm laughing because I've had so many people that I know I have love for and respect feel like that, but I've had a lot of conversation with family and friends who think that I am kind of dismissing how they feel, and I'm just what's happening in that moment is that you don't realize you want to cling so tight to what's wrong because you feel it so close to you that when another perspective comes, it feels like you're supposed to keep how you feel. Right. It's like people feel like they're indebted to their negative emotions. Right. Like negative emotions is like a black man's barber. It's like when he start cutting your hair right, you don't want to leave. You want to make sure you get your hair cut by the same person. Right. A lot of us feel indebted to our negative feelings, so when we experience them, and something comes positive, we don't want to let it go. Like, we really want to hold tight to it.
Right.
So when someone comes and says, hey, there's this, this, and this, that means you have a trauma response within you, because your first thing is thinking that they're trying to dismiss you when they're trying to give you something positive.
Right. Yeah.
It's because you have clinged on to your positive emotions in such a way. You know, it's self-righteousness.
Right.
That keeps you stuck with that feeling. Because I can tell you, you don't have to feel that way. But you already feel that way. And you've already probably married that feeling. So now the only thing that's going to get y'all to break apart is divorce. So now, instead of being able to just put it down, there has to be so much more energetic force to pull you apart from this feeling you think you rightfully have.
Right. So when someone does get that feeling, when someone's trying to tell them something that could possibly uplift them in a hard time, should they recognize that feeling as more so the feeling of having maybe been dismissed in the past, but recognize it as not something that's happening here?
Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, too, I love it when people turn back and they be like, you dismissing my feelings? Because I want you to tell me. Like, I want you to act as if me, the person who cares about your feelings, who didn't prove that they care about your feelings, then sat there with you through tears and all this other stuff. I want you to look at me and tell me that you think I'm dismissing your feelings.
Why do you want that?
Because in that moment, we get to have a true moment of true acknowledgement.
Right.
Where I take the mirror and I put it up back in your face and I'm telling you, you think I'm dismissing your feelings. The person that's a therapist whose whole job is like dealing with emotions and feelings. Who is someone who practices Ifa, who really cares about you and what's going to happen to you. You think I'm dismissing your feelings. Because when you actually give that back to them, they take a step back and they say, that's not what he's doing. Then what's happening there?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to really acknowledge what's really happening. How important that negative feeling you have, how important you're making it to yourself. To the point where you think this person is dismissing you. When this person fully acknowledges you. Because that's the attempt that I'm trying to make in therapy or with friendship, is to fully acknowledge somebody's being so they feel like you really are present with them, rather than you like talking to somebody and thinking something else or being somewhere else.
Right. Feelings can make you delusional.
Feelings can make you delusional.
Right. So you guys, this has been some tips on how to not make molehills into mountains, and have a way of putting your problems more into perspective.
Hey, and look forward to more communications just like this, where we get a better understanding of psychological, mental, and emotional, as well as spiritual concepts that help to inform our lives and make things easier to deal with. Comment,
like, subscribe, all that good stuff. The Idealist Conspiracy. More videos to come. Soon enough, me and Amal will be in the same place, and we will record these videos live and in the flesh.
Yep. Please like, subscribe, and get in tune with the Idealist Conspiracy.
Peace.
Peace.